Welcome to Gaming Vibes on a Sunday, and I'm Troy, your host, and this is LTR Gaming. And look, man, feels great to be back live in front of the camera again. Haven't done a Gaming Vibe video on a Sunday in a while, so I'm going to be getting back into the swing of doing these particular type of videos. And in this particular video, I'm going to be discussing two games that was recently revealed that we've been anticipating for a very long time. And those games are Far Cry 6 and Dying Light 2. And while these are two games that I really have been looking forward to for quite some time now, the gameplay that the entire world got the opportunity to see, and the expectations are obviously through the roof. And I would say visually, of course, right? Both games look stellar. They look great. Look like it's going to be a great experience. But at the same time, I want to discuss Far Cry 6. Now, this particular game is a game that's far different than any other of the Far Cry games that we've ever played at this particular point in the sense of the location. And from the last two experiences that we had, which was Far Cry 5 and New Dawn, it apparently is a standalone game that has nothing to do with that plot and storyline. And I was quite surprised. But at the same time, I really enjoyed Far Cry 5. That was a game that really, made me want to get back into the franchise. And mind you, I've been playing Far Cry since Far Cry 1. And Far Cry 5 came out in 2018, right? And, I thought it was one of the newest and latest, greatest entries since Far Cry 3, that Ubisoft have ever decided to release, right? Because, you had other Far Cry iterations and games in between this game, but I thought this one was the one that really set it off, right? It not only did it take place in America, it wasn't a fictional place, it was a real place, a real state. And it kind of, was teetering on that post-apocalyptic, end of the world type scenario where you have these religious crazies trying to take over the entire country or take over this particular region that you were actually playing in. And I thought that was pretty dope. I thought it would have turned off a lot of gamers just with that, spiritual undertone to itself. And to be quite frank, it really didn't. Now, I won't say that the characters in the game are very memorable. I really didn't care for them. I really didn't take to any of them. But I like the option that they gave the option to play as either a man or a woman. And, it was literally like any other Far Cry game in the sense of open world. That's what they're known for, open box, sandbox game. But the liberation of going from, town to town, you're working with the sheriffs. And you literally, there's no gray area of whether you're a good guy or bad guy. Clearly, you are the good guy. And I kind of also thought that it kind of pushed the envelope on what people thought if Ubisoft was going towards this woke PC crowd that they were trying to adhere to, I would say. And I was kind of put off by that initially. But once I played the game, I really enjoyed it. And mind you, by the way, it did pretty good. It did pretty good. And I would say that it is worth playing. But then Far Cry New Dawn came out. And I'm like, well, what is this? Is this a new game? And spoiler alert, if you haven't played, Far Cry 5, the way that game ends, it ends very badly for everyone, right? Bombs were able to be activated and launched and obliterated, right? Pretty much, I would assume, the entire United States. But that's what I assume happened. Or maybe it could have been just the state that you were actually playing in. But then New Dawn came out. And it was more like an aftermath game that explained pretty much what happened after those nuclear bombs or those atomic bombs dropped. Life continued to flourish. Everybody didn't die. People were able to survive and make the best of their new living arrangements. And, it brought a different kind of color palette, I would say, to the experience. It was very neon based. And maybe that's due to the radiation that, Ubisoft was trying to get through to gamers, as this spinoff is, obviously a spinoff from Far Cry 5, but also it's trying to tell a story that's unique and can stand alone in its own. And I thought that the story fell short. But also the game was also a reskin, I feel, of Far Cry 5. Now, Ubisoft is known for doing that, right? They're known for using somewhat of the same properties in the next upcoming game to some degree, maybe to, kill development costs of, the time and the effort it takes to map out these games and to create the environments. And I understand it can be very tedious, but if you're going to charge someone full retail value for a game and you're saying this is a brand new experience, you ought to also be, as transparent as possible when also sharing this information with gamers, such as, hey, we're going to be bringing assets over from the last game into this game. Now, gaming franchises that have established themselves as franchises do this often, right? Like you would expect, give you an example, Naughty Dog, Last of Us, they would bring over assets from The Last of Us to The Last of Us 2. But that's a franchise. You expect a continuation from that story to the next game, right? It will bleed over. But, I understand that they use, assets from Far Cry 5 into New Dawn, and it pretty much was a bleed over from that game into this one, into New Dawn. But I thought that some people didn't take to that. Some people thought that they just rushed it out because it was almost as if they just churned it out almost after Far Cry 5 came out, within a year or so, I believe. And I think people were like, well, damn, you guys are trying to milk us twice with the same reskin of the same game. You just upped the color palette just to make things seem a tad bit different. And, that was some of the takes that some gamers had, and they had the right to feel that way. I would never knock somebody from feeling or having an opinion about something that they bought, and, they felt like they had the opinion to say that, and hey, that's their right. But also the story wasn't it. The story wasn't it. I didn't care for the twin sisters who apparently were the bad people that you had to contend with, even though they were very difficult to fight and defeat at the end. Maybe just for me, but then again, I play the game on hard. I don't play on easy or normal. So that was that. And I thought Ubisoft would, give the Far Cry, brand a break. And some would say, well, they did, right? It's been 2 years since the last Far Cry game came out, and we've been waiting to see what this next experience is. And we got that teaser of Far Cry 6, and I was like, well, what is this? This looks like some Che Guevara Cuban refugee militant takeover of Cuba type Far Cry game, and I was all for it at first. I was all for it. I was like, what, are we in Cuba now? Because I thought they would have ran with the same, sense of, hey, we need to make the next Far Cry game take place in an actual real world setting to give it some credibility like they did with Far Cry 5, but they didn't. But just from the aesthetics of seeing the trailer, I was like, well, this can be very interesting. And they just showed us the trailer of a man, dragging his son up to the roof and giving him a grenade. And then, there's a crowd of people below, and he's apparently the dictator of this island, and he drops the grenade and you don't know what happened. So it kind of left a lot open to be speculated in regard to what this game is. What is going to be the actual experience? Where could they go next with this? And then we got the actual gameplay experience, the reveal, which happened recently. And I was a bit apprehensive because I was like, well, Ubisoft, please don't screw this up. Like, let's keep this one grounded. Let's keep this one in the realm of reality and true to nature of what you do and what you want, as, what you want this franchise to eventually evolve into. And I see kind of the direction that I think they're trying to evolve this game into. And this game, from what I've seen so far with the reveal, they have so many third-person cutscene sequences where you can actually see your character. And I've never seen that in a Far Cry reveal, not even in a Far Cry trailer, where they constantly showed you the main character that you'll be playing as, or even interacting with other people in several different sequences over and over and over again at such frequency. And I'm wondering if they're attempting to make this a first-person MMO experience at some point in time. Maybe not in this game, but maybe somewhere down the line, maybe a Far Cry 8. This might not be the Far Cry experience that we've been accustomed to. And I'm all open for revamping a series and giving a different experience and a different light on it, because things need to grow, things need to change. Now, what Ubisoft has protested that this game is going to be one of the largest Far Cry games that they have created map-wise. So it's going to be one of the largest maps that they ever decided to ever create in their particular franchise. And that could be a good and a bad thing, because if you had any past experience with the prior Far Cry games, yeah, you'll have big maps, but it wouldn't really be a lot of things to do. Obviously, you're liberating outposts and, killing enemies, things of that nature, which is great, right? I have nothing wrong with that. I have no issue with that, but I still wanted for more due to the expansive amount and value of space that was just empty and left just blank with nothing to do. Now, they would fill in from time to time hunting activities, or they'll send you to the far north corner of the map where you got to go all the way up to the north part of the map and hunt like a white tiger, and the only way you can upgrade your pouch is if you get this white tiger skin. So that will send you in that direction to travel in an area where you wouldn't really necessarily go. And I kind of thought that it maybe in 2015 that worked, but in 2021 that's not enough. If you're going to make an open world map and an open world game, you're going to have to fill it with things that make sense, that's realistic for what the game is. Now, if this is some kind of, alternate universe, loony, wacky type experience where it's not trying to tie itself to realism, then great, right? You can do whatever you want. In the sense of, if you was comparing it to, give you an example, a Grand Theft Auto game and a Saints Row game. Like, Grand Theft Auto is well rooted in reality, right? And in a lot of things. When I mean reality, I mean the story campaign of the Grand Theft Auto games, right? Like, you're not flying in the air, you're not no magic superhero, you don't have superpowers. No, you're a real human being. You can die. You're dealing with real world issues. If you play GTA 5 story, you'll understand my drift. Whereas Saints Row, it's kind of like alternate universe, alternate reality. Things are not real. You're in a gang, but now you can fly. You got these abilities. You're hitting people in the head with dildos when you're running down the street. It just didn't. It didn't grasp to the realism of what the day-to-day person would expect to experience in a realism game. And my thing is, if Ubisoft is going to be going for a realistic experience for Far Cry 6, I would hope that they would stay, rooted in that 100% throughout the game. Now, Far Cry games are known for having those loopy moments where, you go off in the area, you find a cave, and there's some witch doctor in there, or there's some shaman in there, and he gives you like a drink, or he gives you something to smoke, and then you pass out, and then you wake up, and then you're seeing monsters and things of the nature that isn't like anchored in reality. I get that, right? That's like a trip out, or that's like, you're experiencing hallucination and think. They've done that so many times throughout the Far Cry games, and I think now in Far Cry 6, I don't see where they would do that in this one, because this game is necessarily rooted in more of, it seemed like it's more of a guerrilla warfare type of experience that they're trying to convey to the gamer who's going to be playing this. Like, you're an actual soldier, right? You're fighting the government, or you're fighting the dictatorship, and he has all of the advantages and you don't, and you have to make the best of your abilities to be able to compete with these guys and to defeat them. From the gameplay experience that we saw, and from the experience, from what we've been told from the developers, you have 48 different weapons. So that's the most amount of weapons in any Far Cry game that they ever had. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of trophies that you're going to be able to find. Everyone's not going to be able to find every weapon, so therefore there might be replayability in that. Some people might feel like, hey, I never use this sniper rifle, I never use this particular kind of handgun or shotgun. Well, let me go out and find it and now use it, and maybe there might be a trophy attached to using that particular rifle, getting enough kills, so on and etc. Also, you'll be able to customize your weapons. Now, in Far Cry 5, in New Dawn, you were able to do that to an extent. You was able to tweak a little bit, and that's not really something that Far Cry has always done in the past in their games, in their franchises. Normally, when you get a weapon, whatever the attachment is to it, that's what it is to it. You might be able to do a minor upgrade, probably upgrade how many, quivers, if you have a bow and arrow, you can carry, how much ammunition you can carry in an ammunition pouch, things of that nature. Swapping out the scope of a sniper rifle, but it seems in Far Cry 6 it goes a bit further, beyond just changing the color of your weapon. Right? It's more extensive. From what I've seen, it could be, and I'm hoping that it is, because that'll be great, because then we'll all be able to have a unique experience. And by the way, I think in Far Cry 5, that was the best gunplay experience that I've experienced in a Ubisoft game that they did. Now, excluding the third-person games, I'm talking about the Far Cry games. Like, their guns in Far Cry 5, I thought they sound the best, and they shot the best, they felt the best. But then again, maybe I play on headsets anyway. I don't play from the sound of my television, so maybe the concussion and the sound of a gun being fired with headphones on, maybe. And then again, take it from me, I'm somebody that goes to a gun range in real life that has rifles, shotguns, handguns, so maybe to me, I'm able to hear things that other people wouldn't naturally hear, that normally don't shoot real weaponry in real life. But I thought if you just listen closely to the gunfire in Far Cry 5, you just take a single shot of a rifle, or take a single shot of a sniper rifle, and you just hear that boom, and it just the after sound, not just the initial sound, but the echo of the concussion of the shot being fired. I think that they really nailed that. So I'm hoping that they bring that over into Far Cry 6 and bring the realism into that particular game. But I think there's a lot of upside to Far Cry. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I think the franchise, at this point in time, it's been a couple of years, and Ubisoft is realizing that we don't need to bleed this thing to death, but we also need to innovate, and innovation is key. Mind you, I'm coming off of Watch Dogs Legion, and I thought that was an okay experience, but I thought even in that game, Ubisoft kind of made an open world, right? Even though it wasn't as big as Grand Theft Auto, if you want to compare it to any other open world third-person game. But again, it wasn't filled with enough things that made sense, that made you want to continue to play the game in between missions and do things that weren't relevant to the main storyline. See, that's what I look for too. Like, believe it or not, man, CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt, they did it right. You know what I mean? And as much flack as they get for Cyberpunk 2077, a game which I've completed and I fairly enjoyed, right? Their side quests and their objective and their main quests, they obviously deviate and separate, but they don't deviate to the extent where you're like, I know I'm doing the main mission and I know I'm doing the side quest. They kind of feel the same, and they don't feel rudimentary, and they don't feel like you're doing the same repetitive thing to an extent over and over again. At least I didn't. And Ubisoft is known for doing that. And like, again, if you're going to make a widespread, sprawling open world game, you're going to have to give people other things to do in the game other than hunting boar. Like, we don't want to just hunt boar while we're refugee fighters. Like, we want to be doing things that are active and engaging, that makes sense, that translate over into, benefiting your camp or benefiting your militia or your refugee group. Like, they haven't really gone into, full blown, this is what it is you're getting, but they kind of did pull back the veil and let us see a little bit of what we could expect from Far Cry 6 to a degree. I'm sure there's some things that they've kept close to their heart and to their breast that they're not going to be sharing with us. And I understand that. I'm not going to trip on that. I'm not going to make it seem like, they got to tell us everything, that we need to know so far up until this point. Mind you, the game is not even coming out anytime soon. I mean, October 7th is a very long time away, even though we don't think it is. It's some months away. And I was a bit bummed out by that, because I'm like, well, okay, why do we got to wait until the end of the year to get this game? Why can't we get it August, September? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know any other Ubisoft games that's as anticipated at this point in time in this year, in 2021, to come out other than this one. So maybe they're trying to just give you something on the back end to hold you over, and then what, we're going to wait until September again in 2022 for the next Ubisoft game to come out. Listen, I don't want to sound like a pretentious jerk or somebody that's not understanding of the time it takes to create video games. It's a very demanding job, of course. Any job is demanding that you have a passion for and you love doing. But I just can't keep giving these studios passes for the quantity of time it makes to create the games. And then when you create the game, you get the game and it has issues with it, right? My thing is, and this is just my motto and my belief, if you're going to take a long time to create a game, well, it should be next to flawless. Nothing is perfect in life. Nothing. I'm not expecting perfect. But what I thought we were going to get, again, to bring up CD Projekt Red and or even a Hello Games, I'll use them as examples. You guys made these games, No Man's Sky, CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk 2077. You guys advertised these games years in advance, and the expectations were through the roof. And that's fine. But the amount of time that you had to create this game or those games, and then what we got at the retail store, it's just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. And gamers, we have to be honest. We don't have to say that things are good if they're not good. Even if we are endured or endeared with whatever company creates the product that isn't living up to the standard of quality in which it should. These games are $70 now. I don't know about you, but I have a Xbox Series X and a PS5. So I'm paying $70 for these games. Not paying $60 anymore, so that's a $10 increase in the cost. But the experiences are the same. The quality of the games are the same. If they're going to be the same, then you know what? I'm not going to be as lenient with you, because if I got to get 5 or 6 day one patches, or I got to get within the first month of the release of the game, the studio got to scrounge together to figure out how we're going to patch this game because it has a glitch here, it has a glitch there, it has this issue, that issue. I just can't get behind that, especially if it's a non-multiplayer game. If it's a game that you play single player by yourself, no one else, you're not necessarily needing online services to play the game, it should be no excuse why we should get games that are not completed, that we should have to just play in a janky state, in a non-functional state, in the sense of what's acceptable in the standard. And then the studios expect gamers like myself to then come to the defense when, hey, you got crunch time, or you're staying late, or you're having to work longer than expected, or your team is getting burned out. Well, then that's not our fault. We don't have to manage the way games are created. That's not the consumer's issue. We don't have to be concerned with that. Our concern should be, as a consumer, with when we spend our money, we get what's advertised. So if you advertise that, hey, you're going to get a game that's maybe about 70 to 80% completed, still needs to be worked on. There will be patches coming along with the game. Don't expect a flawless experience. And I still then give you my money with that disclaimer that you've given me prior to me purchasing the game. I have no problem at that point. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't complain. Either I buy it or I just wait until you complete the game. But you can't have it both ways. And I see some people, and maybe they're paid shills and they get paid, or they get sent free merch or free games or stuff like that from these companies. To regardless of what they do, they're going to come to their defense and be anti-consumer in a lot of ways. I get it. There's a lot of YouTubers out there that do that because they're trying to make livelihood. They're trying to create a name for themselves. But yo, if you're just a gamer, man, like, you know what's right, you know what's wrong. Like, at the end of the day, let's be real and honest here. Credibility. Hold these studios credible. Yo, it shouldn't take you 7 years to create one game. One studio shouldn't be working on one game for 7 years. No, not acceptable. And if you're working at that pace, that game needs to be a game that's going to last a decade. It needs to be on the same caliber of a Skyrim. And I'm not saying Skyrim doesn't have issues, but hell, Skyrim has been on at least 3 or 4 different generation platforms. I mean, it's more than likely going to come to the PS5 and Xbox Series X with enhancements. I mean, and I'm not saying that the game doesn't have issues, but it's a game that has stood the test of time because it's a fun game to play. Well, if your game is fun to play and it can compete with a Skyrim or be as enduring and alluring as a Skyrim, then great. Take 7 years, 8 years. But you put out something that is half-heartedly done, like a Fallout 76, and then you got to patch your way as the gamers are playing the game. That's not acceptable to me. Not one bit. So let's talk Dying Light 2. There was a recent reveal of Dying Light 2 gameplay that looks great, by the way. Listen, man, I have so many fond memories to think of and ponder about when it comes to my first initial experience from Techland's initial Dying Light game that came out in 2015. And even though that was 6 years ago, going on 7 years, I still even play that game to this day. And, you know, the way Techland handled that game, as far as the quality that they put into it, the experience, the DLC, they really supported the game, right? It's not a franchise that they just made and they just let fall into the abyss of the Mariana Trench and no longer supported the franchise. They supported that game for years with updates. Again, like I said, DLC that was very much adequate for the experience. But then again, I'm a post-apocalyptic, you know, zombie guy. I love games like this. And the setting was just great, right? Who wouldn't want to be in a setting like that? But the gameplay of Dying Light is what I think is the most alluring to most gamers. The parkour experience, the first-person experience. Not sure if it would have been as fun if it was a third-person game. So that first-person experience, jumping across rooftops, flipping on, you know, buildings and rolling on the ground and, you know, chopping a zombie's head off and it's slowing down in slow motion, or, you know, I really enjoyed that game. And I think it was one of the best zombie games that was probably ever created during that timeline. Now, we know there were other games like Dead Island. And Dead Island came close, but it wasn't too close. It wasn't as sharp. And I think that also they didn't put as much polish as they should have put on Dead Island. And then also Dead Island had more than one iteration of it. They had Dead Island 1, Dead Island 2. And excuse me, they had another version of Dead Island, not Dead Island 2, because Dead Island 2 is a game allegedly we're supposed to still be getting, but we haven't got any notification of when that's going to be happening. But this is a game that we also thought was going to get canned too, because several times Techland, they were like, you know, we're working on it, we're not working on it, we're working on it, we're not working on it. this is what you can expect. This is going to be different. Well, there's not going to be any kind of guns in the game. Well, then there's going to be guns in the game. Then it's going to be back to some Victorian era. It was like, well, what are you guys doing? And I'm glad that they decided to just continue on with the current state and time of the last game where that one took off at, and just kept on with the kept on. And from the recent reveal of the game once again looks splendid, looks beautiful. Open world game, mayhem, different factions that control different parts of the city. And it's not just the zombies you're fighting, it's human beings you're fighting too. That's what makes this game even more interesting, is that you have that human element. Not that it's a multiplayer game in the sense of you're fighting other gamers that you're playing against, but you got to contend with zombies, you got to contend with human beings that are trying to survive too, and then you got to deal with the goddamn night creature that comes out at night, who you literally can't defeat. Like, you can only keep this thing away from you. I remember playing Dead Island 1, and at night it's like, oh, I got to do a night mission, I got to go out at night, and you're dreading this shit, even though you know, like, yo, I know I'm going to run across this thing. And even on your mini map, you're like, all right, I know where it's at, and you can see it chasing you on the map, and you can set up little traps and things to slow it down. But that adrenaline, it's like an adrenaline that no other zombie game, to me at least, provides me with. And then now with Dead Island 2, years past, those things have morphed into so many different other type of creatures and different entities, and they look crazy, they look monsters, they look disastrous, and you can't run, you can't hide, you just got to figure out a way to survive. I think, again, this is what a zombie game should feel like. It should be against all odds. The odds should be against you every which way you turn, and it looks like, it's going to be that kind of experience. Now, also, I like the fact that this is going to be, you're going to be able to play it on the last gen, unfortunately, in the current gen. And I thought that maybe that would have kind of stifled a bit of the creativity. You know what I mean? Because, when you have games that are multi-plat games, developers typically, they're going to make it accessible and dumb it down for the inferior version of the console that they also got to make it for. And that's going to be the PS4 and the Xbox One. And I kind of thought that maybe they were just going to make this a next-gen title game and just use all of the hardware and the graphical horsepower that comes with that, but they're not. And then again, you have a large base of people who own a PS4 and the Xbox One, so I get it, right? You don't want to alienate millions of people who still play on those consoles, but I think at some point in time, both companies are going to have to switch over and say, look, guys, you don't got to say it in a dickhead way, but you're going to have to say, look, we're moving on. Like, this is the next gen, right? We're moving on to next gen hardware, next gen games, and only those games will be able to be supported on those particular platforms, and you're going to have to upgrade and pony up the money to get them, if you want those new experiences. And I'm fine with that. I have no issue with that. I want there to be a divide between what's next gen and what's last gen. That's the whole point of paying what we paid for these next gen consoles. Now with Dying Light 2, you're going to get the open world experience, of course. You're going to get the parkour experience. You're going to be able to explore an entirely beautiful post-apocalyptic disastrous city where people are trying to survive, and they're thriving, but they're still surviving in the most barbaric ways. And you're going to have to make tough decisions. Apparently, it's very much driven more story than not just action gameplay, rather than the last one, compared to what we've been revealed to see in the actual trailers of Dying Light 2. It seems like, it's not just a hack and slash zombie game. No, you have decisions to make that affects different people in the game. Different people you're going to gravitate towards in the game and enjoy in factions, and you're going to have to decide, and those decisions are going to be tough, and they might not favor everyone. They might not even favor you you might get double crossed in the end. So I like the fact that Techland is taking the time to actually make this game. They didn't rush anything out, even though they could while we were complaining, because at several moments, at least a couple of years ago, I thought we were going to get this because we saw trailers and we saw somewhat gameplay of it. But then again, they decided to hold off and, delay. And again, I'm fine with a company delaying the game. I'm fine with them saying, hey, we need more time. That's just what we need. And it looks like we're going to be, pleased from what I've saw with what's been revealed. Now, this is another game that I'm not too happy with when it comes to the release date. This game is going to be released on December 7th. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you release this like on Halloween? Like, we've been waiting for some time, like 6 years, going on 7 years, since the last game. Release this on Halloween. Like, that would have been dope. That would have been the perfect time. Everyone's festive and, we're coming out of COVID and, people are able to walk around without a mask and be able to, in a sense of covering your face with a mask due to, not being exposed to anything anymore. Half the population probably in North America is vaccinated. And, there's no necessarily mandates that the government is enforcing on us, so you can actually really be festive and really be into the swing of the season. Release this on Halloween. That would have been perfect time, and I think they would have done well. I think they would have done great numbers. Now, they're still going to do good numbers, right? December 7th, right? You're still going to get this. I'm still going to get it. Some people are going to have to wait until Christmas to get it, unfortunately for them. But I really believe in Techland when it comes to this game. I think that this is their baby. This is not a game that they're just looking to cash grab and put out and just make a couple of dollars on and just go about their business. Like, they really, cultivated this experience, and they really nurtured what this game is going to be and what it should be for us. And you can just tell by the detail, the attention to detail that they've done when revealing this game. And I just really think that this game is going to be setting the standard for what a zombie game should feel and play like. Right? Like, I wish this was like a Walking Dead game. Like, I don't know why there's not a company that gets the license from AMC and decides to create a Walking Dead game. I think Techland, if they would have done that, I think they would have been a great company, a great developer to create a real sufficient, respectable Walking Dead game due to, the Dying Light experiences that we already had with the first game. And from the way the second one looks so far, I think, why wouldn't it knock it out the park? Why wouldn't it perform to the expectations that they are expecting it to perform to? So I have a lot of faith in Techland. I have a lot of faith in what they're doing. I have a lot of faith and belief that this game is going to be in the nomination at some point in time for Game of the Year. And I'm just ready to play new games. As somebody that has both next-gen consoles, I'm cool playing old games, right? And to seeing the difference in how they look and play. Right now I'm playing The Last of Us, the original one, the remastered version, because I'm now trophy hunting, right? I'm trying to get as many trophies as I can get. And because you already know, right? Naughty Dog is creating a remake of The Last of Us 1, more than likely with the Last of Us 2 controls and graphics and gameplay experience. So they're going to create a completely new experience with The Last of Us. But now I'm trophy hunting, and I'm finding myself trophy hunting a lot of older games, and I'm fine with that. But also now I'm also getting to the point where I'm like, yo, I get it. Ratchet and Clank is coming out, and several other games are coming out, but a lot of games that are coming out are not to my liking or not to my palate, right? So I just got to just deal with that. But this is a game that I'm looking forward to, and I'm just excited for it. I'm excited to have it, and I hope you guys are too. I hope that you guys give it a shot and go back and play Dying Light 1. That game has a lot of DLC. Like, you won't beat that game in a week. Like, even if you play that game 8 hours a day, like, you will not find every treasure. You won't find every Easter egg. You won't complete all the DLC because there's a lot. If you play it right and you play it the way it's supposed to be played, it's a great game, a great experience. I might even do, a replay of Dying Light just to get back into it. But I just think, at the end of the day, we need to start seeing the fruits of our labor now. I get it. We were going through the situation we were going through the last year. We're coming out of it now. It's no excuses now. Like, it's no excuses. I can't keep expecting developers to keep delaying or not even making compatible and competent games that we should expect from next gen systems that were released in the middle of this situation, and then they expect us not to then expect titles to be played on those next gen systems. Like, then why would you guys release the system if you don't want the gamers then to expect the content to be for the system readily available to be played? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Then if that's the case, you should have just waited till we went through this situation, and then once we came out of it, here are the next gen consoles. That would have made more logical sense. But since we didn't do that, and that's on a alternate timeline and universe, this is what we got. So we should be demanding more going forward and not be so lenient on giving developers, the benefit of the doubt most of the time when it comes to creating these games. It doesn't take 7 years to create a goddamn video game. Stop. Anyway, guys, I am Troy. This is Game Vibes Sunday. Hope you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing this every Sunday again. I have been doing it quite often, but I will be getting back into the swing of things, doing more videos and takes and reaction videos on what I like, what I don't like, my experiences, and, of course, gameplay, walkthroughs of the games that I'm currently playing. Like I said, I'm playing The Last of Us Remastered on the PS5 because I'm trophy hunting right now. And the particular trophy that I'm attempting to get is the, I want to say, the trophy that you have to earn by leveling up all of your weapons, by completely upgrading all of your weapons. So I'm playing that right now. I'm playing it on easy though. So when you see me killing shit and I look like a boss, don't hate.